our equities menu, and then take a look at European equities in our case. We have a number of complimentary news subscriptions available to our clients on this page, which you can take a look at, preview, and then choose to subscribe to on the terminal. What I wanted to highlight to the investor relations clients in particular, if I scroll further down, we have a number of sector wraps. If I could just ask everyone on the line to mute if you're not a speaker, that would be helpful. Thank you. So if you just scroll further down, we have, consumer wraps, energy wraps, financials, healthcare, industrials, materials, and so on and so forth. What are these going to do for you? These are going to give you a morning preview of what's going on, what kind of news has come overnight for that particular sector. So I'm in the European consumer wrap at the moment. This just gives me, in bullet points, a digest of news stories that are likely to move that sector for the day, some things that have happened overnight, maybe some things we picked up in the RNS feed this morning, any ratings changes from brokers, you're going to see that over there. So you're going to get that this morning. And guys, if I could ask you to please mute your lines, that would be really helpful, thank you. And then when it comes to the end of the day, you're going to be able to get a look back of what's happened in that particular sector for the day. So we give you a morning preview and we give you an end of day wrap, which is really useful. And okay, so I'd like to move on next and sort of look at some of the news trends, sentiments, and readership data we have on the terminal, which is pretty useful. So I'm going to run the news trends function TREN on the terminal. So on our news, hi, if I could ask everyone to please mute your lines, please, thank you very much. We can hear you playing with your children in the background. So if you run the TREN function, this over here is going to give you a sense of, in Europe, for example, which companies have seen the largest increase in readership on the Bloomberg terminal over the last 8 hours versus the 30-day average. So, much more significant readership of content on these companies, and also people looking up for news on these companies on the company news page. So today, we're seeing the National Express Group in the UK. They're launching a share placing right now. Typically, you see big increases in readership activity when there's been a significant move in share price or in share volume, and then we will give you a bit of a preview of what kind of content might explain that increase in readership currently. So that's something you can take a look at. We also have some really interesting sentiment data, so news and social media sentiment. We basically run our algos through the news stories on these companies, and we will give you a score from +1 to -1 to give you a sense of how positive the news stories and the language in those news stories is about the company, and how positive or negative those would be. So on a scale of +1 to -1, 0 being neutral. We do the same thing for social media sentiment as well. From this particular page, you should keep in mind you can put in a security list. So if you want to put in, say, an index for your peers, you can select the security list and bring that in, and then just bring in the list of peers and sort of see how everyone's doing in terms of reader activity and sentiment. That's something that you can choose to do as well. Over here, I'm just defaulting myself to look at Europe. So, for example, National Express, I can click into this little charting icon, and then that will give me just some analytics on the news side. So over here, I'm just getting these 30-minute bars showing me what the news publication activity looks like, and then towards the bottom, a sense of the volume of stories we consider highly positive and which we consider highly negative. So a little bit of analytics in the background that you can take advantage of. We do the same thing on the social side. If you click into the, say, Twitter sentiment, UniCredit's got a lot of negative Twitter sentiment at the moment. you could click into this for a little bit of analysis on that as well. So plenty of analytics on the sentiment and readership side on the terminal. Next, I wanted to sort of go over the AI-driven alerting that gets used a lot on the Bloomberg terminal. You can find a lot of this on Help Space the AI. This is essentially a landing page that summarizes some of the key AI-driven alerting we have on the terminal. If I just go into the market signals over here, these are quite popular with investors. You may find some of these quite interesting. We have AI-driven alerts using our data sets to find anomalies, and we have these for big surges in option volume on particular stocks. We have similar things for just volume on the underlying equities as well. We've got alerting to do with sort of changes in sort of activist investor activity. There's plenty of interesting alerting that you can take a look at over here. Say, for example, the option volume surges. If I click into that, I'll be given a bit of a description and then some of our key codes. So if I click into this one for Europe, I'll give a sense of what this looks like. You might want to go into actions, use advanced editor just to filter this down to the names you actually care about. But I'm just going to open one of these over here. So, for example, Telecom Italia has seen a surge in options volume today. Our AI essentially generates a news story when our data sets are seeing an abnormal amount of activity in a particular market, and then we're quickly summarizing for you. There's been a vast increase in the number of options contracts versus the average, and we give you a sense of whether this is on the call or the put side, and which particular contract is most being traded currently, and any further data pieces that we have for you. So these are the kind of alerts that investors are quite keen on, and things that you can set up for yourselves as well. Another sort of theme I'd like to highlight is the Bloomberg terminal has quite a lot of tools to help you analyze news flow and also come up with reports on the fly using our data sets and our news flow. We're going to be providing more and more technology as time goes on in this kind of space. But I want to give you a little bit of a flavor of that now. If I go on the ntament function for the news category, I'll be able to show you a little bit about what this looks like. So this essentially categorizes our news flow. So I'm going to just get rid of the company I've got loaded here, and I'm going to change this to a particular sectoral theme. Let me search for oil. So I'm now looking at news flow to do with oil. And then I very quickly get a sense of, okay, which are the companies that most get mentioned in this news flow? Who are the individuals who most get mentioned? So a lot of news stories around oil now actually have to do with President Trump as well. And then a breakdown of other topics that are also being mentioned within that news flow. So a little bit of interesting analysis, and you can run this on topics, you can run this on individual companies, just to kind of break down the news and try and analyze that a little better. So, I showed you the news themes earlier within the company news page. We've also got our news category page here as well. On the command line for a particular company, so I've loaded British Airways over here. You'll notice this automated intelligence yellow icon. If I click that or I run the AID function on the terminal, you're able to automatically generate a report for yourself on that particular company that's very quickly going to look across our data sets and our news flow and bring a little report together for you. So in this case, highlighting here that shares have fallen almost 1%, while the stock 600 has been advancing. We give you a little bit of sense of share price and what volume looks like, some key news stories that give you a sense of what's going on, and then a discussion of any kind of other interesting data points or maybe catalysts that might be driving some of the activity in the news flow. These reports can also be translated into other languages if you work in other languages using our technology as well. So in other words, you're going to be seeing from Bloomberg a lot more out there to help you sort of analyze news flow, to put together reports. That's definitely a theme on our end. You can expect to see more and more from us. Then moving on to the social media side, I wanted to take a moment to discuss. On the Bloomberg terminal, we have about 45,000 Twitter handles that we consume all the content and show all the content to our clients. But we also have an advanced engine that looks through Twitter, removes handles that we are blacklisted or that don't have many followers, that aren't verified, and various other kind of criteria that we look at. And we will pull tweets using our feed that we have with Twitter to pull tweets on particular themes. So like we were doing earlier with News On, you can search for tweets on oil, for example, and we will bring you tweets to do with crude oil to give you a little bit of a sense of what the people in the financial markets are discussing on Twitter, and we pull that in. So on Bloomberg, you can take advantage of handles as well as some of our topic code searching. And one thing a lot of clients highlight to us is the speed with which they get Twitter content on the Bloomberg. And the speed of that. And you'll find, people who tend to use twitter.com or TweetDeck, they see a few seconds delay in actually getting those tweets up there. We have a direct feed with Twitter, and we will pull those in super quickly into the terminal. And a lot of clients like to take advantage of some of the curation we have through the Bloomberg newsroom. So NI space velocity is a really good way to use this. These are basically tweets curated by the Bloomberg newsroom that we think are quite interesting for our client base to see. You can then you can either consume this full flow, or you could go on Actions, use Advanced Editor once again to link this to a particular company or particular list of interest, and then create an alert for yourself. These kind of curated alerts from the Bloomberg newsroom tend to be very popular with our client base, and can also help highlight really important tweets to do with your companies as well. The SOCI is our social monitor page on the Bloomberg terminal, which a lot of clients like to take advantage of. We have these for a number of markets, so you can follow some of the key handles we recommend to clients. Say in the case of oil, for example, I can pull in some of the key handles that have to do with oil markets and follow some of the key tweets they're putting out there, and bring that into a social monitor that you can consume in your Launchpad view. Now, just before I pass on, I want to take the conversation into the ESG space. So to give you a sense of what we have on the news side, for those of you interested in ESG as a theme, if I go onto the ESG page, which is an overview of Bloomberg's ESG offering, I'm just going to click into the news section here to show you a few of the things that I think are quite useful to highlight. At the very top here, I have some of the key newsletters and subscriptions we have available in the ESG space. We have the daily ESG highlights newsletter. This is going to give you a nice overview of some of the key ESG-related news stories that have affected businesses across the world. Lots of really interesting charts in there as well. So we break this down, by E, S, and G, and bring you also a little bit of our news, kind of a summary of our news stories to do with sustainable finance and some of our key research pieces from our Bloomberg Nest and our Bloomberg Intelligence analysts as well. So a really nice thing to subscribe to on a daily basis. You can click on the subscription button here at the very top to subscribe to this piece. If I just head back to BSG, we've also got the Good Business newsletter. This over here focuses on climate-conscious investors and also sustainability. This comes out once, by the way. So very much focused on climate change. They have some interesting interviews they do here occasionally. Once again, if you like the look of this, you can subscribe to it on the subscription button here at the very top. Last little thing on the subscription side will be our Green Bonds Weekly Wrap. So this will summarize the new issuance in the green bond space on a weekly basis for you. So for those of you with companies issuing a lot of debt at the moment, this might be the kind of thing you might be interested in following. We give you a sense of what pipeline there is, some of the top deals globally in there. We also break that down by regions for you nicely. That comes out on a weekly basis, subscription button at the very top. A code that's been quite popular with our clients, you'll see over here, is the ESG controversy screening. Essentially, we look through our news flow for various keywords which might highlight some kind of ESG-related controversy. What makes this quite useful for clients is they'll then go into the Actions Advanced Editor and they will filter this content down to particular companies of interest. So say, for example, I just want to pull in our ESG screening and controversy screening on the stock 50 companies and then run this. This might just help highlight certain news stories that might be potentially controversial on the ESG front and bring that forward to you. So it gets used a lot by our client base, something that can be quite interesting to follow as well. And then just going back, if I go back to the BSG page on news here, just to make you aware, we do also have a number of data fields in this space. So as earlier, I mentioned sort of what we have on data sets to do with news readership, sentiment on the news side, also sentiment on social media. We've equally got some data fields within the ESG space. So looking at news stories that have an ESG element, and then looking at positivity and negativity of those, the volume of news stories that have a positive or negative sentiment that have an ESG flavor. So you can read up on these. We've got more details on the BSG page on the news menu there. So without further ado, I'm just going to pass this on to my colleague Maya now, who is part of our Bloomberg Nest team. We'll carry on the conversation on the ESG side for you. So let me just pass this on to Maya.
Thank you. So I'm just waiting to get the presenter right. Oh, it works.